So we've got to play a consistent 4 quarters against this team. This is a very good team. And again, it's the National Football League, so you better get ready to play your best each and every week.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Spent the last half hour before the show started listening to Matt LaFleur's presser. It was brief. The injury report, I think, looks promising. Devontae Wyatt is back, limited capacity. But I now see from Matt Schneidman's Twitter that he feels as though Devontae Wyatt directly saying should be able to go on Sunday. That's great. It's one guy that's been banged up and hasn't been out there. They're also getting Jonathan Ford back. So a deep defensive line gets a little deeper. They get one of their better pass rushers, Devontae Wyatt, who is off to such a great start. And then they get one of the guys that we can, I think, expect to be a little bit more of a run stuffer, Jonathan Ford. I remember Pete Doherty telling us about that before the season started, about how, hey, if he doesn't eventually settle on the roster in Green Bay when he's back from injury, he's going to go somewhere else and be a run-stuffing defensive lineman for another team. So I'm excited. Those two bodies trending back to being back for the Packers on Sunday. Also, Robert Saleh at Packers practice today, which is something that we're going to talk about. It's nothing crazy. He's just kind of helping out as a consultant. But it's an interesting story, and Matt LaFleur had a couple interesting comments about it at his press conference just an hour or so ago. And I like interesting. Anything that's interesting, we'll talk about. As Colin Cowherd, I think, obnoxiously says, he's in the interesting business. I'm in the interesting business. So we'll talk about Robert Saleh, Packers injury report, and anything else coming out of the Packers locker room over the next hour or so as players are made available to the media. I will pass anything along that you need to hear. I liked Matt LaFleur's approach. I liked the things that he had to say today. It seems like this team might be ready. I don't want to say hit their stride because I think they have hit their stride to a degree coming out of that Vikings game. I think they can hit a better stride. I think they can take another step up. And Matt LaFleur seemed very comfortable, very confident about the material, about what's coming up this weekend against the Jags. I really like some of the comments that he had outside of what he had to say about Robert Saleh, which again was just interesting in and of itself. And we'll get there. It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Jesse Temple in an hour and a half from The Athletic. He'll make his weekly stop to talk Badgers. Another win, and actually fun nugget. If you hadn't seen this already, I know Jesse put it in his story the other day. The Badgers allowed 1 touchdown on defense over the last 3 games, all 3 against Big Ten opponents. The last time that they pitched, I don't want to say a shutout, but the last 3-game stretch against Big Ten opponents in which the Badgers defense only allowed 1 touchdown was 1998. So you can say, yeah, not the stiffest of competition. Okay, sure, but still a really, really impressive feat. And I'm certainly excited to see how this defense and offense that really found something over the last couple weeks translates against a Penn State team this weekend that's certainly a cut above, but the game is at Camp Randall. This Badgers team playing with a lot of confidence right now, and I think the crowd and the environment should be really great. So we'll talk with Jesse. College football, Badgers coming up in about an hour and a half at 5:30. 608-321-1670. Text, call the show. You can stream it on YouTube and on Facebook. The Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills. Look it up, and you can watch the stream on Twitter and tweet me during the show as well, at Wisco Grant. The NBA is back last night. The Bucks are back tonight. I have a lot of thoughts. Just about 10 minutes to start the show. And then I think we'll probably mostly football the rest of the way. If you have a basketball comment or an NBA comment, you can certainly take it via phone call or a comment. I just think we should say a couple things about the start of the NBA season. The Bucks back tonight. I love the Bucks. I love sports, right? I love all sports. If Wisconsin was to get a hockey team, I'd be like, well, now I'm going to learn hockey because that sounds fun. Another sports team, more content, more things for us to talk about. It's all good, right? I love the Bucks. I love all sports. I love basketball. But I am less passionate about the NBA big picture every year for the last couple of years. I also watch. I'm not boycotting. I'm not done with the league. I grow more and more lukewarm about the NBA every single year. Last night, for example, right? NBA opening night. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, sure, shoot. Why not? I guess, yeah, basketball's back. It's not like I was rushing home, turn the TV on. Like when you have a gathering going on with some friends or with some family, you're throwing a function, you're throwing a party, and the fringe person shows up. Like the fringe friend or the fringe family member. The person that's never at the top of the list when you're inviting people. They show up and you're like, oh, yeah, sure, come on in. You know, it's like, it's not a bad thing. But that person doesn't also add anything. You're not psyched. Hey, you made it. Like, no, it's, come on, grab a chair. Why not? Sure. Yeah, you can come hang out, come join the party. It's like, we got the NFL going on. We got college football. Got the World Series about to fire up on Friday. College basketball is about to start. It's like, yeah, that's right. The NBA starts in mid-October for some reason. I get, sure, why not? TNT show and ESPN coverage tonight of the Bucks game. Like, I guess I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to dump on the NBA. I'm just not that psyched up. It was pretty cool to see the Celtics get their championship rings last night. Banner night is always special. Number 18 for the Celtics. And it also, like, the banner night is cool because it gives fans a chance to relive some of the most special moments from the previous season, from the title run. And I'm no Celtics fan, you know this, but let me grab my notes. I wrote down what I believe to be some of the cooler Celtics moments from last year's postseason run. Again, these are moments that they got to celebrate. Beating the Bam Adebayo-led Heat in 5 games. Who could forget that classic first-round series? And just to refresh your memory, the second-round series against the Cavs. Oh, that's right. That was great. That was a classic, right? Sure, unless you wanted Donovan Mitchell to play, then no. But at least the third round, I mean, the conference finals was special. The Indiana Pacers, a lot of classic moments, really entertaining series. And then, of course, you could forget the NBA finals against Nikola Jokic. Against the NBA finals against Steph Curry, classic. Oh yeah. The NBA finals against the Dallas Mavericks and Maxi Kleber. Yeah, great. A lot of classic moments. It was nice to see Celtics and their fans be able to celebrate one of the super memorable classic championship run last year. And also just shooting a ton of threes. That's a product that everyone enjoys. Also, and I'm just kind of rambling. I'm just kind of throwing out my NBA thoughts, my basketball thoughts as the season gets underway. How am I supposed to be locked in for opening night or locked into games when I know the season is 6 months long and 20 teams make the playoffs? Heck, forget locked into watching games. How am I supposed to listen to an NBA podcast? You know what I mean? Like, I should want to drive home tonight after work and throw on an NBA podcast to get ready for the season, but I'm gonna listen to whoever, Simmons and Russillo, or one of the Ringer pods, one of the ESPN pods. Fans are missing out so much. We don't have access to the wisdom of JJ Redick anymore now that he's coaching. A loss for basketball fans everywhere. How am I supposed to even enjoy a basketball podcast? What are they going to talk about? Man, Celtics Knicks. You watched that last night? Yeah, but who knows with the Knicks? Like, Mikal Bridges is farting around with a shot, and Karl-Anthony Towns just got there, and Celtics took 1 billion threes. Like, how am I supposed to consume any of this on a deep level? Even a semi-deep level, even a shallow level, how am I supposed to consume any of this? And how am I supposed to care deeply about these games and care about this product when the players obviously don't? Like, a lot of older fans and former players complain about this generation and how they're spoiled and they're entitled and everybody's buddy and, a million different things, injuries and load management, all these different complaints. And I think a lot of the complaints coming from older players or older fans, it's just sour grapes, right? We always dump on the generation to come after us. It's what we do. It's human nature. But I tell you what, aren't Paul George and Joel Embiid embarrassed to not be playing tonight? Like, I just don't see that flying in the 90s or the 80s. Like, that just seems so quintessential Gen Z. It's like opening night, it's just the first game. Who cares? Yeah, it's the first game against a rival at home against your fans who should be excited for you to get the season underway. Like, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that Joel Embiid is not playing tonight because he's progressing. He's okay with that. He should be embarrassed. No wonder he never wins anything when it matters. And to wrap up our NBA thoughts before we switch over to the Packers, even though I'm less passionate about the league writ all, a little bit more every year, because I think as you get older, your time gets a little more limited. Like, the peak of my NBA fandom was probably during the pandemic or shortly after, because I could just come home, was single, I had nothing going on. It's like, I guess I'll watch Heat Hawks on League Pass. And then when that's done, I'll watch, Kings Jazz. As you get older, you just have more things going on in your life. It's like, man, I don't really want to watch a lot of these games if it's so clear and obvious that the players really don't care all that much. And there's 6 months of this, and everyone makes the playoffs anyways, so what are we doing? look, even though I'm less passionate about the league, I'd still really like to be able to enjoy my team regionally, like baseball. I don't really care about the Texas Rangers or the Arizona Diamondbacks. If the Cubs and the Cardinals play on Sunday Night Baseball, coin flip chance I watch, right? My interest league-wide is here. It's there sometimes, but not like it is for the NFL, right? I enjoy the Brewers regionally. And I wish I could do that with the Bucks. The problem with that is, and this matters to me, and it should matter to you too, the games are really expensive and the players might not play, right? I can go to a Brewer game and sit in the outfield, or heck, the second or third level, depending on what game it is, for 20, 30 bucks. And I can see, if not all of my favorite players, most of my favorite players. And if they're not playing today, they'll play next weekend. I'll play the next day, and the tickets are cheap, and it's easy, and it's fast. Last time I went to a Saturday night Bucks game, which is really the only time that a lot of people can go, because even if you live half hour or an hour away from Milwaukee, which is still a small percentage of the state, geographically speaking, so you got to go into town, you got to get there a certain time after work, got to get parked, get situated, and you don't want to rush. Like that's no fun way to go about it. So let's say Saturday night Bucks game. I went to see Bucks Hawks 2 years ago. Tickets were $85 before fees to sit in the nosebleeds. It's like to enjoy my team regionally, just my team. Forget the league in which they play. Forget the larger context in which they operate. If I just want to enjoy the Bucks the way that I can enjoy the Brewers, I'm just going to go to a game. I'm going to go see a game. I got to pay $80, and I'm still not even really sure if the good players are going to play. And if the game's out of hand by the second quarter, they might just give up anyways. It's really difficult for me. It should be difficult for you too. Like, there's no reason that nosebleed seats, there's no reason that cost should be that prohibitive to just go to a Bucks game on a win on a Saturday night. So we open the NBA Lounge. Just a couple thoughts. I'm excited for Bucks Sixers tonight. I am embarrassed. I have secondhand embarrassment for Paul George and Joel Embiid. And Shams Charania at ESPN earlier today reporting the league is investigating what's going on with the Sixers and their lack of transparency about Joel Embiid's health. Forget the Sixers. Joel Embiid should just be embarrassed. Like, this is such a bad look. You're not ready to play on opening night because you're fans. If you had offseason surgery, that's one thing. NBA fans, look, we understand. Like, Bucks fans, we want Chris Middleton out there, but like, hey, man, you had double ankle surgery this offseason. You were playing into the playoffs. Again, the offseason is short. Yeah, it's okay. Don't rush it back on opening night. But Embiid, what's his excuse? In front of his home crowd? That's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing. And if that sits okay with him, if he's fine dressing up some fashion statement on the bench tonight and playing grab ass and giggling on the bench with his buddies while his teammates are out there competing in his building in front of his crowd, again, no wonder that guy's never won on the biggest stage when it matters the most. That's such a bad look. And not a little embarrassing. It's a lot embarrassing. Little interesting news note from Matt LaFleur's presser. Let's react to this together before we take our first break. Matt LaFleur asked about Robert Saleh, who was at Packers practice today. That's interesting. Now, it was reported, I can't remember by who. It was reported by multiple people. I remember referencing it on Bill's show. It was someone who was on with Bill. I guess this doesn't matter to you. I'm just trying to remember who the heck was it who had the report. But it came out that Robert Saleh is just going to focus on being with his family and getting a job next hiring cycle. He wasn't necessarily interested in finding part or full-time employment as a consultant or as an analyst or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't come to Green Bay for a week to visit a friend, Matt LaFleur. And, my brain, when I saw Robert Saleh was at practice today, thought, oh, what a cool trip to take with the family. Let's go to Wisconsin. Let's go say, hey, Uncle Matt, remember my college buddy? Let's go see Lambeau Field. He'll give us a tour. We'll get a place to stay. We'll see the sights in Green Bay. Like, it's a fun family thing. Maybe his family stayed at home, maybe not, but that was my thought. It's like, oh, Robert Saleh just goes to get an inside look at one of his best buddies, his coaching operation, and gets to chime in a little bit on what he's seeing at practice. So this is Matt LaFleur asked about, hey, Robert Saleh's here. Like, tell us about that. What's going on there? Here was his response. This is his press conference, not 90 minutes ago.
We've been close for a really long time. We were roommates together back at Central Michigan. So, we thought it was a good idea just to bring him here. And he's helping us on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's always a good deal to have that perspective, that defensive perspective on that side of the ball. So just taking a look at some of the things we're doing.
So I didn't cut every little comment from Matt LaFleur. And if you want to hear all of it in depth and you want to hear a breakdown of everything that Matt LaFleur had to say, the Bill Michaels Huddle's coming up in less than 2 hours. He'll have all of that audio for you. Mike Clemens will give his reaction. He was in Green Bay as well. I was just getting ready for the show. I didn't want to cut every single word of Matt LaFleur. I wanted to make sure I got the main bullet points. That's kind of the main explanation of what Robert Saleh is doing. He's going to be here through the end of the week. It doesn't seem like a super long-term thing. Again, visit a friend, enjoy some free time in the offseason, go to Green Bay before it gets freezing cold, bring the family, see the sights, that kind of thing, which makes total sense. Matt LaFleur was asked follow-up. So is he working with Jeff Hafley? Is he doing anything on the defensive side? And LaFleur explained it pretty clearly that he's just viewing our offense because he thinks Jeff Hafley and his staff's got a good thing going. It's his first year. He's got to figure all this out for himself. He's got to get used to going through the season by himself. And he didn't want to put that on Jeff Hafley, which I thought made a lot of sense. Because that could get a little weird. They're all professionals. I don't think it would hurt Jeff Hafley's feelings or anything, but there's a way to make use of Robert Saleh. Hey, take a look at our offense. What do you see? What can we do a better job of hiding? How can we tweak protections or this, that, the other thing? He was also a further question and answer. This is from Ryan Wood, who was on the show last week. And if you can't hear this, I included Ryan Wood's part in this, but just to tell you before, just in case it's difficult to hear, basically said, hey, what does it say about Robert Saleh that instead of going to be on a beach somewhere, he's in Green Bay doing football stuff?
Say about him that he did want to take that opportunity. A lot of coaches in this league might be going off to a beach somewhere for the rest of the year.
I told him to do that, but he didn't listen. I just think it speaks to how much he loves the game of football. And, was obviously I think it's tough when it gets kind of taken away from you. I don't think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say. So,
I had to cut that part at the end.
I don't think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say. So,
talking about the firing of Robert Saleh. I don't know. I'm pretty right down the middle on the firing of Robert Saleh. It's like, okay, Jets, if you want to try something else, you can. I don't really think Robert Saleh is the problem. I'm also not going to sit here and say that he's an amazing head coach. I think we have a couple years of evidence that he's good defensive mind, maybe a good motivator. But I don't think it's not like they fired Jimmy Johnson here. Like, it's Robert Saleh. Should they have done it after week 4 or week 5? I probably wouldn't have, personally. But Jets are going to jet. I just thought that little comment at the end was funny. It was interesting. Again, if nothing else, I'm always looking for interesting.
I don't think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say. So,
not for me to say, but you said it, Matt. That's the thing.
I don't think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say.
That's not for me to say, but I did just say it. Let's take a 3-minute break. Any of your thoughts on the return of the NBA? Anything coming out of Green Bay today? I have some extended commentary from Matt LaFleur about the Jags, who are the Packers' opponent coming up on Sunday. I loved everything Matt LaFleur had to say about this upcoming game. It feels like the Packers might be ready to take another step, which is kind of what we were hinting at in last night's show. So that's exciting to me. 3 minutes. We'll come back, get to your phone calls, your thoughts next. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you being here, listening. Jesse Temple joined us to talk college football, Badger football. Penn State coming to town on Saturday night should be an electric game, and an electric game that I didn't really expect to get. If you go back to when they got housed by Alabama at home, I remember leaving Camp Randall that day and thinking, man, the rest of the season might be a little bit of a drag. Like, I don't know that we're going to have very many memorable games. Don't know that we're going to have any crazy environments. Just kind of feels like this year is going to be a lot of meh. And to think over the last 3 weeks that this program is giving fans a shot in the arm again, to the point where now that Penn State's coming to town on Saturday night, I think we're going to get another shot at a crazy crowd and another opportunity at a win with a lot of Badgers fans with high hopes, really high energy levels. So we'll talk about that with Jesse coming up in about an hour. I give you some thoughts on the NBA. I don't really have anything more to say other than, what I said. So if you missed that, sorry. If you have Bucks thoughts or NBA thoughts, you can call in and add them. Otherwise, we're going to continue to talk Packers. Matt LaFleur bringing Robert Saleh to Green Bay. He was at practice today, not working with the defense, but instead just watching the offense and trying to find weaknesses and nitpicks. Imagine that would be pretty badass, right? Like, that'd be a pretty great feeling. Imagine being so good at something where other people are like, hey, could you come watch the thing that I'm doing and tell me what, and tell me like how you would attack it or how you would do it differently. It'd be cool. Robert Saleh, it's like, yes, I'm the soothsayer here to cut through the deception of your offense. Like, it would just be kind of a badass feeling. Matt LaFleur making a little comment in passing about how, like, hey, I don't know that I would have fired Robert Saleh if I was in charge of the Jets, but I guess not really my decision,
I don't
right?
think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say. So
not for me to say as he's saying it. 608-321-1670 to your phone calls as promised. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Wisco Chad for you, Grant.
Wisco Chad. Hey, Chad in Sun Prairie. Long time no talk.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. I still listen to you damn near every day. It's just been a while since I've had time to call in.
I appreciate it. That's fine. We're all busy people, Chad.
Yeah. I figured today was a great day to call in. Getting dragged out of the woodwork by some of your comments here. The one that struck a chord is all these guys that you're calling Generation Z are still millennials.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean. One of those generations that we all make fun of.
I'm a millennial. I think you actually classify as Gen Z.
I'm Gen Z. I don't know what Embiid is, but millennials and Gen Z, throw them in together. We both suck.
I don't know. There's starting to really be a more defined line between the two generations. But, either way, I think it's stupid to sit here and talk load management. Jordan would go out, pound a case of beer, and then go play and didn't care. And now these guys get a Band-Aid and have to put it on their scratched fingernail and they can't play. So it's not the same.
Look, I understand that. Let's just use the word, and I use this respectfully, the old heads. I understand that the old heads take pot shots at this generation for lots of different things, and I think a lot of them are unfair. Like, I roll my eyes at a lot of them. But I don't know that a bunch of star players in the 90s would have just been okay sitting out on opening night because they're not in shape yet. Like, what? That's a generational thing to me. And Joel Embiid shouldn't be embarrassed. That's such a bad look.
Well, and I think part of the deal too is that the thought processes, they all were out of shape, so it didn't really matter. Like, it took till December before they got in.
Yeah, but they'd play. They'd play. Shaq would play his way back into shape. which he'd get criticized for, but at least he's playing.
It was perfect. It's great because then when games start mattering, they're in game shape. I don't know. Maybe it's just a little indicative on the state of the NBA now. You don't bother to watch a game till at least the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyways, I think that this the Robert Saleh thing is pretty cool. I have a feeling that contractually he can't be here longer than just like showing up and saying or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably Jeff Hafley's contract probably says that there can't be a co-coach or co-defensive coordinator. And if he's stripped of it, he has to be fired and paid or whatever. So that's probably why. But again, it's super cool that honestly, it's unfortunate that he didn't become available at the end of last year because he would have been a phenomenal defensive coordinator.
I think so too. I think he's a great defensive mind. He's a great defensive play caller. Obviously a buddy of Matt LaFleur. I think if I had to guess, this is probably how this went down. They were texting or, whatever. And Matt LaFleur said, hey, if you want to come do football stuff for a little bit just to stay in the mix, bring the family to Green Bay. I'll show you around or we'll put you up somewhere. You can see the sights. They can tour Lambeau, all the things. Because Robert Saleh probably wants to take advantage of this time and spend some of it with his family. Coaches are so busy during the season. He's probably spent some time with the wife and kids. If he has wife and kids, I think he has wife and kids. I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe he just flew to Green Bay to get away. Guys weekend with Coach LaFleur for a couple days. I don't know. But a worthwhile set of eyes on the offense. It can't hurt. And I like that Robert Saleh could have gone to other teams to do this. I like that he did it in Green Bay. And that shows networking is an important part of coaching, right? You got to be able to convince other people to come work for you, to be a part of your program. And I know they're buddies. So that's, it's a big part of it. But I don't know. I think it's a sign of a healthy coaching staff, a proactive coaching staff, and a coaching staff that's not afraid to do something extra here and there if they think it's going to give them a chance to win. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Grant.
Good afternoon.
Darnell.
Is this Darnell? I was going to say, this sounds like Darnell, but I've never heard you start a call that way. What's going on?
Well, actually, I am excited for the Bucs to start their season, as I always am. But I guess I'm even more excited because it feels like a revenge tour for something that hasn't even happened yet.
Okay.
Right? Like it's just disrespect after disrespect from the mainstream, the NBA talking heads. No one has them doing anything really.
Mm-hmm.
Finishing 5th in the East, finishing 7th in the East. I've seen several of those different, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I know I'm a super unbiased fan, right? Super unbiased, but I just don't see a team that has Giannis and Damian Lillard on the same team, on the same court a lot, finishing that low. That doesn't make any sense.
Of course it doesn't.
And I think that they're going to blow that prediction out of the water because they don't have to do the feeling out thing that they did last year.
I have just stopped. I'm done fighting. I'm done. The NBA media it's honestly, it's a lot of ESPN. It's not just ESPN, but it's a lot of ESPN. It's just so remarkably stupid. And yeah. I have elected to I've stopped engaging and I've stopped participating. And look, the Bucs are going to catch some criticism, Darnell, and people are going to be lower on them this year because you lose in the first round back-to-back years. That happens. I think some analysts are going too far with it. Yeah, because again, I think that the NBA media sphere is remarkably stupid. But I'm not going to fight this war. I'm not even going to put on my boots and grab my musket, let alone actually fire shots in defense of this team because they deserve it to a degree. They lost in the first round, but the NBA media sphere is still stupid. I'm not getting involved.
And that is very gallant of you. I want the Bucs just let their basketball do the talking. And you were right. 2 first-round exits does not exactly instill a whole lot of confidence.
No.
But there is a very, very, very big common denominator in both of those first-round exits, and that is injuries to the best player on your team. And whether he wasn't in the series at all, like last year, or missing parts of it and not being 100% in the year before. It's, you're not going to win series in the NBA without your best player. It's just not going to happen.
No.
Right?
No.
It's such a one person can make such a huge difference on the basketball court that, the Bucks missing Giannis is not like the Brewers missing Christian Yelich, right? It's just that's comparing apples to oranges. Also, one other side note, I think that every single time I think the Badgers are out, they pull me right back in, and I absolutely think they have a shot this week against Penn State. And I don't think it's because their offense has been better. I think it's because their defense is so nasty right now.
Ooh, so it's funny that you say that, Darnell. I'll give you a little taste, a little sneak peek of our conversation with Jesse Temple coming up. And Darnell, I appreciate the call. So I talked with Jesse for about 10 minutes. I always record a little bit earlier in the day because that's what works for his schedule. So when he joins us at 5:30, I'm playing for you a conversation that I recorded earlier in the afternoon. And one question that I asked Jesse was, hey, the last 3 weeks, not great competition, which I'm not holding against the Badgers. That was their schedule, and they whooped them all. But now that the competition level is about to ratchet up, do you have more trust? Do you have more faith in the offense or the defense maintaining their level of play? And Jesse, I think for the first time since he's been joining the show, first and foremost, goes, oh, that's a good question. Yes. And he said defense, he thinks. He's buying a lot of stock in what this Badgers defense and what Mike Tressel's been doing the last couple of weeks. So, Darnell, great minds. You and Jesse Temple both thinking alike. And I appreciate your Bucks takes as well. I'm just not fighting. Look, the Bucks could go into Philly tonight, and they could lose to the Sixers, who will be without Paul George and Joel Embiid. And then ESPN's going to fire up some manure tomorrow about how, is this the beginning of the end? It's just, I'm opting out of all of it. I'm going to watch the Bucks tonight. Maybe I'll listen to the post game with Justin Garcia on the flagship, our friend of the show. I'm going to listen to Justin, and then the rest of it, I've just got past the point where I care because it's just such a, it's all bull. What's the word I'm looking for? It's all bull something, not bull crap. There's another phrase I'm trying to think of. It's just all this whole cock and bull clickbait internet swamp, and I hate it all. So I'll watch the Bucks tonight. Maybe I'll listen to Justin's post game, and it's probably going to be it. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue talking Packers, and I'll try to think of the expression that's on the tip of my tongue.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Well, I think when you look at this team, they have lost a game by 3 points, by 4 points, and by 5 points. And and they were in command versus Houston and versus Miami, and they easily should have won. They could be 5-2, sitting the same as us right now. So I think that speaks to who this football team is. They've got weapons in every phase of the game. They've got receivers that are explosive. The tight end's explosive. They got 2 runners. They got a franchise quarterback. And then I think you look at the defensive side of the ball, and just their ability to get after the quarterback is it's real. They got 2 edge rushers that are 2 of the best in the game. So on teams are making plays. They had a 96-yard punt return for a touchdown last week, and so we've got to play a consistent 4 quarters against this team. This is a very good team. And again, this is the National Football League, so you better get ready to play your best each and every week.
Bingo! Bingo! Matt LaFleur from this afternoon just gets us back into this segment, gets us back into talking Packers. First of all, bull roar. That's what I was trying to. Bull roar. Rico tweets in and says horse hockey also would work. Yeah, NBA media and all of the talkers and shows. It's just a swamp. It's gross. Bunch of bull roar. That's what it is. Love that commentary from Matt LaFleur. We need to play 4 consistent quarters. Yeah, you do. Now, I think the last month for the Packers has been a rousing success. To come out of that Vikings game for getting blasted early, and then Jordan Love and that offense kind of find a rhythm, and defense kind of finds a rhythm in the second half, to come out to win against LA, to win against Arizona, and then to win by hook or by crook, to win by any measure against the Texans. Great. Excellent. 5-2, breathing room, achieved. Keeping up with the Joneses in your division, achieved. Now it's time to take another step. Beat the brakes off of a Jacksonville Jaguar team that you should be able to handle if you stay focused and remember that, yes, it's hard to win in this league and you can't take anyone lightly. And then you have a date with destiny. The Detroit Lions at home before a bye. Jamison Williams is probably going to be suspended for that game. So you catch a little bit of a break there too. They can finish strong. And even if they, you know what? Even if they beat the Jaguars soundly and lose in a great game to the Lions like the Vikings did last weekend, I will have considered this portion of the schedule leading up into the bye a great success, especially considering that Jordan Love got hurt and we thought, oh my God, is he even going to play again this year? Starting Malik Willis for a couple games. So the Packers over the last month, I think it was a great step in the right direction. It's now going into the bye time for them to take another nice step. There's steps to this. There's levels to this. Back to your call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, you're talking about a date with destiny. I just had a little tennis date with a lady.
Interesting. Was she good at tennis?
Pretty well. Yeah, I haven't played in 15 years competitively, but I tell you what, I handled my own.
Okay.
And, she didn't kick my ass. It was pretty even, but, she could handle the racket pretty well. And we'll see. Hopefully that's some foreshadowing. We'll see what happens. But, the dinner dates are coming up soon after this. But, back to the Packers.
Of course.
I got to give Matt LaFleur some props. Give him the flowers.
Okay.
This guy, highest winning percentage out of NFL coaches currently right now active. Third winningest coach in the history of the league right now. He's with Lombardi, Hallis, Shula. Look it up. There's certain people that wanted him fired last year. He's had 3 starting quarterbacks. I mean, everyone said Aaron Rodgers. It was all Aaron Rodgers, all Aaron Rodgers. Well, then it was Jordan Love. Had some bumps. Then Malik Willis comes in. Here's the point I'm trying to make. This guy is adaptable.
Yeah.
He's not winning one way. He's adaptable. He's putting his pride, to the side. Like, hey, it's my buddy, but I'll bring him in. Maybe we can learn more. He brought in Halfley. He didn't know Halfley that well. This is a sign of a coach that's willing to do whatever it takes. I'm glad he's my coach.
Adaptability is important. And I think now that we see a pretty sizable body of work for Matt LaFleur, succeeded with Rodgers. It took a little bit with Jordan Love, but I think Matt LaFleur needed to figure out, okay, how do I best coach this guy? How do I coach a team that's very different? And then when he figured it out, look at the run they went on last year, and they're 5-2, including 2 wins with Malik Willis so far this year. Adaptability. I don't know if you've heard the talk about Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan's taken a little heat. I know his team's banged up, but his offense is rigid. He doesn't adjust. He's very strict to his system, and this is what we got to do, damn it, and if we can't change it. I don't think that way of Matt LaFleur. I've seen them cook up a dozen different game plans over the last 2 years, feature different players, play completely different brands of offense. I think adaptability and flexibility, very, very important for a head coach, especially one that's calling plays, Tony.
Right, and a leader of men. That was a knock on LaFleur. Kind of a quiet guy, maybe a little nerdy growing up, smaller stature. He's not like a big Dan Campbell type. But I don't know if you saw Tucker Kraft a couple of weeks ago. He's mic'd up, and he said, don't let LaFleur find out. LaFleur, get mad. I don't want to feel his wrath, So you could tell that the coach has got the players' respect. The way that locker room is, I know winning helps, but even the way he handled Dobbs and Jair the last 2 years, major respect for me, and I'm sure the players feel the same way. So the point I'm trying to make is Matt LaFleur is our head coach. This division is stacked with great coaches, but if you mentioned we got through this part of the schedule, it's not even Packer time yet, Grant. That's after Thanksgiving. Packer weather, Packer times coming up. They're passing the test. And this is going to be just a fun year, man. I'm excited.
I'm having fun so far. I'm enjoying the ride up until this point. And Tony, that's a good call. Appreciate it. I think, again, the last 3 weeks, they took a really nice step in the right direction. It would be great if they could blast Jacksonville this weekend and then play an awesome competitive game against possibly the best team in football, certainly the best team right now in the NFC, the Lions, who are a week and a half away. They come to Lambeau a week from Sunday. So I think the next 2 weeks offers the Packers another opportunity to take a step. And I loved what Matt LaFleur said in that cut. Let me play that part of it one more time. Basically saying, we need to play 4 straight quarters of consistent football, because look at the Jags. They lost close here. They lost close here. The Packers are 5-2. They could easily be 2-5. They could easily be 7-0. Here's a little bit of that Matt LaFleur comment one more time.
In every phase of the game, they've got receivers that are explosive. The tight end's explosive. They got 2 runners. They got a franchise quarterback. And then I think you look at the defensive side of the ball, and just their ability to get after the quarterback is it's real. They got 2 edge rushers that are 2 of the best in the game. So
Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen.
teams are making plays. They had a 96-yard punt return for a touchdown last week, and we've got to play a consistent 4 quarters against this team. This is a very good team. And again, this is the National Football League, so you better get ready to play your best each and every week.
Got to play a consistent 4 quarters. The Jags do not rush the passer well. They do not cover well. They do not tackle well. They're not a good defense. And Trevor Lawrence in this offense has been underwhelming this year. I don't know that they're buttoned up. I don't know that they're detailed. I don't think they snap their routes with the requisite level of crispness and attention to detail. I remember a couple weeks ago when they played the Bills, I don't remember if it was a Monday night or Thursday night. It was a primetime game. It might have even been Sunday night. But I remember watching a film breakdown on Twitter. I'm not like deep on film internet. I'm not grinding all 22, but I saw Ben Solak, who's now at ESPN, used to be at The Ringer, sharing a side-by-side clip basically. Hey, here's the Bills running a play, and here's the Jags running the same play. And he pointed out the tiny little differences. It's like, it's the same play into the same defensive look. It worked for the Bills. It should also work for the Jags. They have the perfect play called against the perfect defense. But the little details just aren't as good. I think it's a little bit of a sloppy team. They have some nice talent, but they don't have all of the talent necessary to be a sloppy kind of detail, a team that doesn't pay attention to detail, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't mean they don't have talent, but they don't have enough talent to be as sloppy as they have been at times this year. That's just one example that I can think of. But I loved what Matt LaFleur had to say. Any coach is going to upsell the opponent. I mean, any high school coach would do that. I remember doing high school football games, and the coach at Menominee, Joe Labuda, he was legend for this. He would hype up Chippewa Falls High School. He'd hype up Chi High. Shout out to Clemhead Mike. He'd hype up Chi High like they were an NFL team. It's like, and I do this voice respectfully because he had a gravelly voice because he was always yelling at practice. Say, oh, Dallas Cowboys O-line, they got nothing on Chi High. I mean, these guys, they got NFL linemen across the board. It's like, that kid needed a step stool in shop class like that. But this is what coaches do, right? They hype up the opponent. So you're going to get that anyways. That's lip service from a head coach. It's the second part of that comment from Matt LaFleur that I really like. We need to play a consistent 4-quarter game across the board. And that's almost secondary of opponent, right?
So we've got to play a consistent 4 quarters against this team. This is a very good team. And again, this is the National Football League, so you better get ready to play your best each and every week.
I like that. I like the comment. We need to play a consistent 4 quarters because I don't think they really have yet. And it's the National Football League. It's hard to win. That's an excellent coach comment. I liked hearing from Matt LaFleur and a lot of things that he had to say. Let's take a final 3-minute break of the hour. Any comments that you have on the Packers, what we've heard from Matt LaFleur, any kind of, I guess, first thoughts on the Jags? Because is today Wednesday? Yeah, today's Wednesday. It's only Wednesday. We're just starting to preview the next opponent. We've kind of been reacting to the Texans Monday and Tuesday this week. So any preliminary thoughts on the opponent, on the location, on the game coming up this weekend? I'll continue to take your thoughts and your calls. Remember, Jesse Temple not too far away at 5:30 as well. He'll join us to talk Badgers.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills, wrapping up hour number 1. If you're watching on the live stream, shout out to our sponsors up in Menominee, Kai Chevrolet, online at ChevyTownUSA.com. Shout out to Joe and everybody up there. They put me in my 2008 Malibu. I enjoy my drive to work so much every day, especially as a listener of sports radio. My previous car was 22 years old, and I loved it. I really did. But I feel like I've upped my game. I've doubled the amount of presets in my car. Big, nice display. When I say big, nice display, a display. And my other car didn't have one. And a car that I just trust to get me from place to place in a way that, I love my old Toyota, but gets to the point where like, hey, any day now this thing could go belly up. And it did. And now I'm driving a much more trustworthy car. I appreciate them helping me find that car. And something that I really appreciated when I started the car buying process, and I reached out to Kai's. I said, hey, I'm in the market for a new car, and I would love to get it with you guys and then praise the work that you do on the radio, because I've worked with them before when I lived in Menominee, around Menominee. Our family's done business with Kai's for a long time. And they said, we'd love to do that. What car are you interested in? What can we help you find? And, it wasn't a brand new truck. It wasn't a fancy new EV. It was, a 4-year-old, basically sedan. Not exactly sexy, not exactly $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And when I told them, nothing crazy, I saw that you have this Malibu available on your website, and it's kind of right exactly what I need and right in my price range for this point in my life. And they said, it's an awesome car. You'll love it. Let's do it. There was no, well, take a look at this. Well, what about this guy? Well, consider this. This is fancy and new. They said, actually, that sounds like a perfect fit for you. That's a great car. You're going to love it. And I have. So go online, ChevyTownUSA.com. You can see their new inventory, or used, but I mean new inventory available to buy, whether it's a new car coming in off the transport or some type of used model that they just got in. They update it every single day, ChevyTownUSA.com, and you can call them as well, 715-954-4104, and they're just a mile off 94 in North Menominee. So if you're coming from Eau Claire, if you're coming from the Twin Cities, been serving customers in need of cars and in need of service in Western Wisconsin for 3 generations. So I can't recommend them enough. ChevyTownUSA.com. Couple of texts, 608-321-1670. Jared and DeForest commenting on our earlier NBA point said, bull snot is what you're trying to think of. I was trying to think of bull roar. And I first heard the phrase bull roar from my 6th grade teacher. They had really good expressions. I'm an expression fan. I have a book, just pages and pages and pages. And my 6th grade teacher, she had just unbelievable expressions. Good night, nurse. She'd say that all the time. I'm like, this is the most folksy person. I'm saving all of these expressions. Bull roar. But bull snot is also good. Thank you, Jared. He said, anyways, I'm calling a statement win tonight from Damon Giannis against an undermanned Sixers team. The NBA has so much noise. Let's quiet some of that with a no-doubter to start the season. Here's the thing, though. There is so much noise around the NBA, and like the NBA shows, man, they suck. And take it from me. I love sports content. Give it to me. Talk shows, podcasts, live streams on YouTube, radio shows, still my favorite. If anyone out there is able to appreciate content that's smut, is me. I love all content. And NBA content is like, oh, Jesus Christ. It sucks. All of it. It's like in the NBA is watching Giannis and how this Bucks season gets off to a start. Everyone's monitoring the situation. Look, maybe at some point Giannis goes somewhere else. But like, how many years are we going to do this? Giannis likes living in Milwaukee. He can go about his business. He loves his family. His family's settled. His kids do things in Milwaukee. They're out and about. They exist as normal people in Milwaukee. It matters a lot to some people. Plus, like, what's Giannis's grounds for being angry at the Bucks right now? He's been healthy the last 2 postseasons. And I'm not even blaming Giannis. Injuries happen, but like, what's Giannis's gripe? You didn't do enough around me. They only acquired Damian Lillard. Chris Middleton was awesome. Giannis just hurt his calf. So what? Why is that the Bucks' fault? I don't know. It's bad faith. It's annoying, and I'm just choosing to ignore it rather than participate and actively defend my team because what's the point? Let's talk more Packers. Jesse Temple coming up in about a half hour to talk Badgers, college football as well. A lot more of the Wisco Sports Show coming up next hour too. First, a 2-minute update from Zach Heilprin. Get the latest on what's going on today in Wisconsin sports. No commercials. Be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers were back in the field for practice earlier today as they began to get ready for a trip to face Jacksonville, and there was a new face among those looking on, former Jets coach Robert Saleh. He was fired earlier this month after just 2.5 years with New York, but his best friend, actually the best man at his wedding, Packers coach Matt LaFleur. So when Saleh got fired, LaFleur reached out immediately. LaFleur said they don't have anything written in stone, but that Saleh will help them on the offensive side of the ball.
I just think it speaks to how much he loves the game of football, and was obviously I think it's tough when it gets kind of taken away from you. I don't think it was the right decision, but that's not for me to say. So I think you got an elite defensive mind, but that's why I want him on the offensive side so he can help us attack the defenses.
Saleh was the defensive coordinator with the 49ers before getting the head coaching job with the Jets. Again, Green Bay getting ready to face 2-5 Jacksonville down in Florida. Kick on Sunday is at noon. Turning to the Badgers, they've got a big game coming up on Saturday as number 3 Penn State comes to Madison. Wisconsin's not beaten the number 3 team in the country since 2003. Haven't beaten the Nittany Lions since 2011. Kick on Saturday is at 6:30.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, it is opening night for the Bucks. They're getting their season going against the 76ers out in Philadelphia tonight. The home opener coming Friday against Chicago at Fiserv Forum. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heilprin.
So we've got to play a consistent 4 quarters against this team. This is a very good team. And again, it's the National Football League, so you better get ready to play your best each and every week.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Jesse Temple coming up at 5:30, as you can see on the live stream if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or on Twitter at Wisco Grant. Speaking of Twitter, so I tweeted last night. This is something I was thinking about when I was leaving work. I was feeling philosophical. I tweeted, and maybe this is a lame thing to tweet, but whatever. It's the internet. Who cares? I said, it's insane how we, as a society, have normalized political solicitors calling and texting us on our personal phones at all hours of the day. Why is this not considered harassment? And then I followed up this tweet by saying, as a child, I once watched my grandpa take a call on his landline and then threatened to come after a Scott Walker telemarketer with a gun. that did happen. Rest in peace, Grandpa Dick. That was funny, although he got scolded by everyone else in the room. You reach a certain age, you can do what you want. The reason I bring this up is Dave from Monona has replied 3 minutes ago. And this is what he said. He said, from what I hear, you have 300 text messages you don't even return. So why are you bugged by political ? You don't even return the majority of your text messages, according to Ebo. Okay. First of all, Dave, what are you even driving at? Or guys, everyone, Dave from Monona, pro-political solicitation guy over here. Dave loves him some political messaging. I was going to say I don't have 300. I have 364 unanswered texts. I think that number's inflated by political season, but whatever. Dave, are you implying that you have texted me and I haven't answered? Dave, I am nothing but available every evening from 4 to 6 at 608-321-1670. I appreciate the call. My grandpa, that did happen. I remember that very clearly. That was funny. And you might think, oh, Grant's family sound like classic liberals hating on Scott Walker. No, actually, I think my grandpa was a conservative. He was just a teacher his whole life. A true champion of bipartisanship. I think he was a conservative. He just, Scott Walker and teachers. What are you going to do? I remember very clearly, answered the phone, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember what happened. And the last thing the last thing of the phone call was, I don't remember if he said, you better be careful calling here, or if he said, if you keep calling here, then someone's going to come after you with a gun. And then he took the phone off of his ear and he pushed the hang up and he set it on the receiver. And I think my aunt was in the room too. And she goes, Dad, hilarious man. I'm not going to say I'm excited to be that age, but I look forward to the advantage that, or the advantages that you get when you're that old. Yeah, I just don't get how as a society, we've just allowed people to call and text us at every hour of the day. And by the way, along those same lines, Sirius XM, I might re-up my subscription, but I'm definitely not going to if you keep calling me at 7:30 at night. That's not how you get my business back. At that point, I am in relax mode. And I'm playing PlayStation or watching Survivor. That's what I'll be doing tonight. Stop calling. Sirius XM, just send me an email. For God's sake. Just knock 80% off the price or whatever you're going to do to get my business back, and eventually I'll re-up. But not if you keep calling me. It's rude. First and foremost, it's rude to call someone on their cell phone. If I called my sister before a certain time in the day, she'd be like, oh, God, Grant's calling. Let alone a stranger calling at 7:30 at night. Anyways, I digress. Rant over. Back to sports. 608-321-1670. Any thoughts on the Packers or anything you want to talk college football before we get to Jesse? Everything's on the board. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Have you ever heard of the word BLOCK?
BLOCK. Yeah, but they all come from different numbers. As soon as you block one, another one pops up. It's not like it's the same because, 2 or 3 numbers, Dave.
Well, first of all, if you actually answered your call or actually spent an hour on your phone and got rid of all the junk, you wouldn't have to worry about it. I've done this for about 6 months. I have 0 calls now because you BLOCK, boom. How long does it take you to hit block? Maybe 15 seconds. I know your generation is a little slow.
Hey, now.
If you block them, they stop calling. So the fact that you won't block them, then you get what you deserve. But according to Evo, you got 300 text messages you don't even return. So
it's not. It's not that I don't return them. I guess I don't even open them. I have 364 unopened texts.
Exactly. So what does that say for your character?
What does that say about my character? It says that I'm lazy. It says that I'm lazy. That's what it says about my character. It doesn't say that I'm rude. It says that I'm lazy.
It says you've gotten to the point where you think you're too good to return calls. I think is where it is, my friend. But anyway, you just start talking about people contact you all hours of the day and BLOCK. Anyway, Packers.
Yes.
Two things. You really have any faith that Matt LaFleur is going to take a team into Florida a week before Detroit? Do you have any confidence? I mean, he's had clock. He still has clock management issues.
Like when?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, when you're up in a game, and this is an ongoing fact, you're up in a game, and you throw the ball 5 out of 6 plays with 7 minutes to go.
You talking about the Cardinals game?
2 weeks ago, or whoever they're playing.
The Rams? So all the way back to the Rams game?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, he does that all the time, and you really have faith he's going to get anybody ready to play. And then as far as Sunday, that defense held him to under 100 yards, and it took a last-second field goal. What happened to Mr. All-American offensive strategy? I mean, you're at home. I don't care. You're at home. You're playing. You're healthy. It took a last-second field goal, and I don't have faith that he's gonna. It sucks. I'm a diehard Packer fan, but if we're gonna rely on Matt LaFleur to bring us through, that defense played their guts out, man.
Yeah, they did.
What they did, but it took a last-second field goal to actually beat that team.
So I would agree with you more if they were playing a team that wasn't any good. The Texans are awesome. That's a really good team. That's a Super Bowl team. So to be like, well, it took a last-second field goal. Well, yeah, I would have liked for them to win more comfortably too, but it's not like they beat the New England Patriots, right? With Jacoby Brissett. That's CJ Stroud.
Rams stink, and it took a time towards the end.
I'm with you on that. There's more of a gripe about the Rams game. That never should have come down to the defense forcing a last possession stop. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have faith in the guy. But on a good note, hey, the Badgers can now maybe start a 5-game losing streak on Saturday night.
You don't think they could be okay? Well, just give me your thoughts, and I got to get to another caller. But Penn State, Iowa, Oregon. What do you think of these next 3 games?
Penn State has a front seven that's gonna stymie Wisconsin. Thank God. They're gonna go to Iowa. They're gonna lose Nebraska. Now there's a wild card there. They're not gonna beat Oregon. That's gonna be an embarrassment. So that'd be 4 in a row. What would that put them? 5 and? Oh, that put them 5 and 6. Wouldn't that be nice? 5 and 7. Oh my God.
Why does that sound good to you?
I told you I can't stand that SOB. He's a piece of what when it comes to fans. He doesn't care about the fan or outside of his team. Batman, he's more like Batgirl. But 2 weeks, Greg Gard starts November 3rd.
He's coming.
Or the 5th. But
I don't know.
Greg Gard, there's Batman. Batgirl, go back to Cincinnati.
Thank you, Dave from Minnesota. Now look, I'm glad that we landed that call in a place where we can agree, because I'm ready for Badger basketball. The NBA's back. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, yep, I guess we can do that. I'm more excited about the return of college basketball, mostly because I think it is better for the show, right? Like the Badgers can play a Big Ten conference game, and I can come on the air the next day and we can have good discussions about it. The Bucks are going to play the Sixers tonight without Chris Middleton, and then the Sixers aren't going to have Embiid or Paul George. Like, what am I supposed to come in and talk about tomorrow? What am I supposed to do with that game? Other than will Giannis request a trade, of course. 608-321-1670. Back to the phones. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Uncle Packer.
Hey, Uncle Packer.
Wow, I wonder who gets up and pees in that guy's oatmeal every morning. God, that must be hard to live like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am so happy. I want to say a couple of things here. Just 3 things. I wanted to say this yesterday, is that I hope that if Patrick Mahomes is tippy-toeing up the sidelines, that Jair Alexander would have the testicular fortitude to wrap that man hard. And I hope that's not the shape of things to come. I think somebody needs to take him out, like a fair tackle, because that's ridiculous. I mean,
I
he
agree.
is so protected.
I agree. The rope it open. It's along the same lines as, remember when Kenny Pickett did that fake slide in college? It's like these defenders they're allowing you to run out of bounds. And remember, which Packers defender was it last year? Absolutely blew up Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. I can't remember. Was it Ballantyne? I can't remember who it was. God, it was a shot though.
Packers. Yeah. I mean, I think Jair wouldn't care. I think I hope that we teach our defense to, hit him. You're going to get a penalty, but don't let him get that yardage.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Now, next thing I want to say is basketball. I love the Bucks, and I don't think after the Brewers I have the emotional time to invest in the whole Buck season right now. It's like the regular season is just preparing you for the tournament more than any other sport. And I don't care. Embiid's out, they're out, this guy's that. They're going to play every other game. They need to go down like a 45-game play, hard tournament to get into the tournament, because the regular season is just no good anymore. You don't want to go to a game because the guy you want to see might be out.
Well, and it's expensive. That's the other thing. If I could get a $25, $30 ticket in the nosebleeds, I'd go, but they're $80 if I want to go on a Saturday night. And it comes down to this. Like, I don't mean to bag on the NBA. I'm happy basketball's back, but it's really difficult to take these games seriously. It's really difficult to take the sport seriously if the players aren't going to. And Joel Embiid not playing tonight, he's not taking it seriously. So why should I? That's really difficult for me.
Right. That's the deal, is that you don't know who's going to show up. They just get ready for the regular season. They get ready for the playoffs. The regular season is more of a go. If you want to finish halfway through healthy in the mid, that's the ones that win, Now, my last thing I want to say is that I bet you Labuda never realized that the most popular, I was going to say Indian, but I think it's the Mustangs now.
Yep.
Was going to be you. I'm so proud of you, man.
I don't know about all that.
Oh, that Mason kid, he went to Iowa. He was a good athlete.
Stanley went to Iowa. He played for the Vikings.
Well, yeah, but
he beat Ohio State. You remember that Ohio State game, that night game at Kinnick? Oh, that was sick.
I know. The kid was a good athlete, but you know what? That Vikings, that ruined that for me. I lost track of him then. But you're going to be world famous, and you're going to talk about Labuda because
Oh, because it's funny. I think it's funny. He always comes up on this show. Thank you, Uncle Packer. What a legend. Clemhead's talking about him in the YouTube comments too. No, I don't at all agree with any of that, Uncle Packer. But I do with all of your basketball takes. I agree with. Stanley had a good career at Iowa. Now, I remember going to that one game in 2017. They lit him up. The only reason, that was the Josh Jackson game, too. Alex Hornibrook got the Packers to draft Josh Jackson. That was a nightmare, but a very fun game, that night game. It wasn't a night game. It was an afternoon game against Iowa. That was a really fun game. They beat the pulp out of him. And I can't remember, one of the Badgers defensive linemen, Stanley fumbled, and one of the Badgers defensive linemen picked it up, but he waited to pick it up until his knee was off the ground. Wouldn't have been Benton, right? That was too long ago. I'm gonna try to look that up. By the way, the Packer that lit up Patrick Mahomes last year was Jonathan Owens. It was like the one positive thing he did. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
A little bit of Badger talk going on.
Do you remember who it was, Vagabond John? Who was the defensive lineman that picked up that ball, and it was such a heady play?
I can't remember.
What good are you? Freaking casual.
I know, right? I know. Nate Stanley, though, I wonder if Badger fans have recovered from letting him get out of state, How did we let that guy go?
Yeah, Paul Chris didn't value him during the recruiting cycle. That's what I came to understand. Kirk Ferentz was on him early and never wavered. Nate, he was at a camp. He was at a Wisconsin football camp. I just don't really think they were all that interested and all that over him. But that's today's generation. They want to be coddled and they want to feel important. They want to feel important. I don't mean any of that, but you get what I mean.
I'm sitting here drinking a glass of red wine, reclined in my gaming chair, playing Civ 6 with my cat in my lap. I'm sure David Minota is
such a
just
douche.
Vomiting right now. Just vomiting everywhere. So it kind of snuck up on me. I've been traveling a ton for work lately, and looking at the calendar and hearing you talk about kind of the upcoming schedule for both of these teams, I'm looking at my schedule. I cannot wait for Saturday night in Camp Randall. Went to the Purdue game. Shout out Matt and Cross Plans for hooking me up with that ticket. But this weekend we're going. We're going like row 20's 50-yard line home side. I got my whole family going to that one, and then I'm headed to Iowa at Kinnick. I try not to ever miss a game at Kinnick. And then the next day we've got the Lions coming to Lambeau. So I think this is peak football season when you look at like the next 4 weeks, right? The Badgers, awesome games, 3 games in a row. The Packers, we're going to be, like you said, have a real opportunity to light it up going into the bye week. But I think really for the Badgers, this is fun, man. And I think Saturday could do a lot to change my entire tune when it comes to Luke Fickell.
This is what I said I brought this up to Jesse, and I don't know if Jesse is like, he gave a great answer about this, by the way. Jesse is very much, by the way, and you know this, like you hear him on the camp and you hear all his hits. Jesse is very much, I cover the team, right? Jesse is providing coverage. I don't think that Jesse pretends ever to be a fan and to speak. You know what I mean? Like that's not his slant. And I don't know if that's Zach's slant either. But from a fan perspective, Vagabond John, I think back to the Bama game. You were at the Bama game, right? I saw you at the Red Zone. Did you go to the game or were you just at the tailgate?
No. I was no condition to be going into any other public space.
I don't know that you were. I don't know you had any condition to be at the Red Zone. But I remember going into that game and leaving, and the crowd just felt like we were laughing at our own team. It was so apathetic. The thought on that day of another big time game under the lights at Camp Randall with real stakes, another game feeling big, it didn't feel like that was possible this season. So for that to be a month and a half ago, and to be back now in a place where, oh my God, Penn State's coming to town at night, I got to be there. Crowd's got to be fired up. I just didn't think that was possible after the Bama game. And I think that goes to show how valuable and how productive these last couple weeks have been for Luke Fickell.
I think in sports talk and, in the Twitter community, we spent the entire summer looking at teams on paper.
Yep.
When we look at these teams, we compare every angle. What's this recruiting class? What's that recruiting class? At the end of the day, these are living, breathing badasses that go out onto a field and play just in a beautiful game, right? But it takes all 11 players to kind of execute. And so we spend all offseason, and it almost starts to think like, we treat these as simulations, right? When we're talking about it all summer long and this team's going to be good, that team's going to be bad. But then, the pads start cracking on game day and players have to make plays. And I think what we saw to start the season as Badger fans is players weren't making those plays.
Yeah.
But teams grow and develop. We talk about it in basketball all the time about how, the Badger basketball team is going to kick off in November here. And I bet you the team's going to look a hell of a lot different in March than it does in November. And I sometimes think we forget that happens to football teams as well, as these players grow in the system, get comfortable with the players that are playing next to them. Injuries come and they go. But I think this Badgers team has shown tremendous growth. And I think most of my negativity has actually been at other Badger fans with how poorly they view the last 10 years of Badger football. But for me personally, as a fan, I'm getting pretty jacked up for Saturday night, man. I think Camp Randall's going to be rocking. I think Regent Street, that article that came out, those bars don't really know what's coming.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an absolute wave. I know there's at least a group of 15 Penn State fans coming into town, so they're going to travel well.
At least 15?
Awesome. And I'm the CEO of the company that I work for is a Penn State guy, and he's bringing I think he's bringing a jet full to Dane County regional, and he's asking me for recommendations. I'm like, well, I know how much you sold the company for. I don't really know. I don't know if the red zone is it, but maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I'll send him to Tornado Room. Where would you send on a game day? Where do you send somebody that is uppity?
Well, I don't know. I can't think like an uppity person. I've never been an uppity person.
That's
I don't
tough.
know. We'll have to find an upper crust individual. Vagabond John, I appreciate it. To your point about the defense, by the way, I don't think that Mike Tressel, and these aren't my individual words, based on what I've read and what I've heard from people who cover the team and people who look into this type of stuff, it's not like he's changed up his defense. He's calling very similar looks, very similar packages. I think it's just being executed at a higher level. To your point, Vagabond John, players like Elijah Hills, right? The transfer from this offseason, they've upped their playing level. And from what I've read, comments from players and coaches, I think everybody's just playing faster and playing more confident. And maybe it just needed to take a couple of weeks for these defenders to really get comfortable with each other. And maybe you just needed to beat up on a couple bad teams to really feel some confidence and to really feel like you had a grasp of the material. Whatever it took, it's working. And this defense is playing a really good brand of football. It's the first time since 1998 they've allowed one touchdown or less over a span of 3 conference opponents in the Big Ten. One more call, then we'll take a break. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, we have the opportunity on Saturday to launch this Badgers program into a new era, into a playoff contender every single year. This win sets the Badgers up for the remainder of the Luke Fickell era until Ryan Day leaves Ohio State and Luke Fickell backfills him.
You think that's where this is going? I do think, look, I texted Zach about this yesterday. I'm like, I'm hearing a lot of hyperbole about how important this game is and how this is one of the biggest games at Camp Randall in a while. He's like, no, a win here would go a long way. I think the difference that this win could make is pretty substantial, to your point, Cone.
Yeah, and, it's big for the Badgers. It's big for NIL. I think it's big for Luke Fickell, for what I said. Ohio State's not going to hire him if he doesn't have a big win under his belt. And
he's got to get one.
It's probably the biggest game outside of Bama that he's had in his career so far. So,
yeah, he's got to get one at some point. No, I don't remember I was talking about this with Jesse, or maybe this was with Zach the other day, but basically, like, it's been a long time since Wisconsin fans have been able to claim, like, I remember where I was for that game. Really, the only memory that I have recently of the Badgers, let's just say the last 10 years of where they won a game like that, was the LSU game at Lambeau. And I don't want to say that win wasn't important. It was, but that's not number one Ohio State, David Gilreath taking back the opening kickoff. Like, that's, it's been a while since we've had a game like that, Cone.
Yeah, and, I went to 2 Big Ten championships in my college years. One was against Penn State, and Vagabond John, do not mention that Joe Paterno knew to any Penn State fan, because I almost got in a fight with one of them for saying that, and boy, did they get sensitive.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, he definitely knew. Well, Penn State fans can get bent. There's at least 15 coming to town, according to Vagabond John.
And if they're happy, defending that behavior, good for them.
Yeah.
God bless them.
Good for them. Yeah. What else before we leave? Yeah.
Give me a reason to be excited to watch the Bucks tonight.
I think Giannis and Dame,
or the NBA in general.
Well, the NBA in general, those are two different things. I think Giannis and Dame are going to have a lot more normal type of season, and I think we're going to have a lot more fun watching those two playing together. And they have the same coach the whole year. Like, we're not going to be coaching drama. Look, I'm not going to act like you need to rush to a TV to catch every minute of this game, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on crucial information. I more have a problem. I don't really have a problem with the Bucks. I have a problem with the league. It's like, so Embiid and Paul George aren't going to play, even though they didn't suffer an injury. We learned that Zion Williamson is out tonight with an illness. Like, do these stars have any shame? Like, how can they sit on the bench on opening night and feel okay about it?
I think it's a league issue. I mean, Adam Silver, he's trying to cut down on that. I think he's really got to lay the hammer down. Like, I don't know if you need to break HIPAA laws, but you need to figure out exactly what's going wrong with these players. And if there is no reasonable injury, they should be fined or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, Sham Sharani at ESPN, Kona, I appreciate it, put out a story earlier about an investigation that the league's doing into the Embiid situation. So I'm going to read a couple words about that. I'm going to skim that quick during this break. We're just a couple minutes away, about 10, 15 minutes away. Jesse Temple will be here to talk Badgers. A lot more of the Wisco Sports Show still to come.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Jesse Temple in about 10 minutes after our bottom of the hour break. I was reading a little bit of what Shams Charania reported at ESPN. The NBA is investigating what's going on with Embiid and Paul George because they're not playing tonight. Embiid specifically. Now, I watched a clip of Nick Nurse's media availability yesterday because I think we learned this on Monday or early yesterday. This week has been a little, I'm having a difficult time keeping everything straight in my mind. Whatever. Nick Nurse met with the media either late on Monday or yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And the Sixers reporters did a really good job asking, like, okay, so did Embiid have a setback? Or why is he not playing opening night? And Nick Nurse basically said he's progressing well. And that's all he would say. And the reporters are like, from what though? Like from what is he progressing, Nicholas? So some information here from ESPN and Shams Charania. I don't really care about the Sixers. I just want to be able to drag them appropriately for this embarrassment of not having their star player, who, again, had no surgery, had no injuries this offseason. He's just not ready to go. The NBA is likely to begin an investigation later into this week into the Sixers surrounding the player participation of Joel Embiid. Sources say, blah, 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 blah. Embiid didn't play in the preseason for what the team called left knee injury management. Oh, so he didn't even play in the preseason. We will miss 3 games this week. Wednesday's season opener against the Bucks, Friday against the Raptors, and Sunday against the Pacers. It's typical for the NBA to review a team anytime a superstar player misses a nationally televised game per the player participation policy. Good league, by the way. Anytime you need to have a policy that compels the players to participate. Good league. The 76ers said Embiid is responding well to his individualized plan and will ramp up to his return to play activities this week, including going through scrimmages. Isn't that nice? He's responding well to his individualized plan. That's great. That's nice. He will ramp up his return to play this week. Why did we not ramp up 2 weeks ago so he would be ready for opening night? Because, sorry, this might be obvious. Maybe I feel the need to explain. Basketball players play basketball, and tonight is opening night for the basketball season, at least for the Sixers and the Bucks. This is the target date. Why are we targeting 2 weeks from now? This is part of the new normal for Embiid this season, according to sources, a strategy to keep the NBA MVP healthy for the postseason. The plan has been expected to include periodic time off during the regular season. Season hasn't started yet. He's already getting time off. And routine evaluations from doctors and the 76ers medical staff, those sources said. Sixers president of basketball operations Daryl Morey told Tim Bontemps earlier this month that Philly would try to keep Embiid and Paul George out of back-to-backs this season. Hey, if you were thinking about buying season tickets to the Sixers, say no more. This is a hell of a sales pitch. Quote, we're going to be smart about it. Part of being smart about it is having both Paul and Joel probably not play many back-to-backs, if any, Morey said. Embiid also told Bontemps, quote, if I had to guess, I would probably never play back-to-backs the rest of my career. Embiid has lost 25 to 30 pounds with the hopes to lose more and will continue to wear a brace on his left knee despite it being something that he would prefer not to do instead of opting to keep it structurally stable and protected as possible. Blah, 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 blah. Bell's palsy, USA, gold medal, whatever. It's just so lame. He's ramping up team activities. That should have been happening a month ago, you idiots. This is so embarrassing for the player. How's Embiid okay with this? And the reason that this is sticking up my butt It's because Chris Haynes 15 minutes ago reported New Orleans Pelicans star Zion Williamson will not play tonight against the Chicago Bulls with an illness. Oh my God. It's so easy to knock this league for being unserious. But how am I supposed to take these games seriously? How am I supposed to take this league seriously if the players don't take it seriously? That's my problem. That's my sticking point. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back, continue the show. Jesse Temple will join us to talk Wisconsin Badger football. What a run they've been on. And now Penn State comes to town. So we'll talk about it all with Jesse coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, they've given up, 16 points in 3 games. So probably says all you need to know right there. But no, I mean, it's an extremely, huge asset to us to have a defense that's playing as well as they are right now. Takes a lot of pressure off us.
It's Braden Locke talking about the Badgers defense over the last couple of weeks. Nice soundbite to get us into our conversation with Jesse Temple. And for those of you who are like, I want to talk more Packers. Okay, well, we did a lot of that. But the Bill Michaels Huddle also coming up in about 20 minutes. So he'll bring you all the sound from Green Bay today. He'll check in with Mike Clemens, what he saw and heard with the players who made themselves available in the locker room. Robert Saleh was in Green Bay today and is going to be here through the week, it sounds like. As a bit of a consultant, he's taking a look at their offense and telling them, hey, here's what I would attack. Here's a weakness that I see, which is pretty cool. And you can hear more about that on tomorrow's show. We'll continue to talk about it more. It's in tonight's show if you go back and check the live stream of the podcast or the Bill Michaels Huddle coming up in about 20 minutes. Here's our conversation from earlier today. Jesse Temple with The Athletic. Jesse Temple is here from The Athletic. Should absolutely subscribe to his coverage and read his stories. He's got a throwback story about Wisconsin's maybe one of their biggest wins of the last 20 years and one of the best moments, 2004 game against Penn State that holds some special memories for certain parties. And you can read that story. It's up today. Also, coverage from this weekend's Northwestern game. You can also hear him on the camp with Zach as well. Jesse, if we wanted to be critical, we could point out a few mistakes and some missed opportunities in Evanston on Saturday. But I'm not going to lie, as a fan, I enjoyed the game. It felt like we got a little splash of tradition, a little ugliness. It doesn't feel proper. It doesn't feel like a proper game in Evanston without a little ugliness. And the Badgers still won pretty comfortably, 23-3. Didn't that feel like we're kind of back to the way things should be? Wisconsin winning in Evanston, but plenty of ugliness in the game as well.
Yeah, Wisconsin's gone down there with some pretty good teams and left with a loss. So
yeah.
Any win down there is good. Northwestern just loves to muck it up, make it a absolute slugfest, and it was still scoreless through a quarter. So Wisconsin's offense certainly wasn't humming along the way that it did the previous 2 games, but did just enough. And I think really the story of the game was the defensive performance, because those guys for 3 weeks have been absolutely outstanding. And I think 2 things can be true. One, Wisconsin has played some bad offenses the last 3 weeks, other than Rutgers having a really good running back in Kyle Monungai. And 2, Wisconsin's defense has still done something that the Badgers haven't done since 1998, which is holding 3 straight Big Ten teams to just 1 touchdown. So I think there's still questions about what can happen against Penn State, but they've done everything they possibly could in these 3 weeks to get back on track.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned the defense, because that's mostly what I wrote down. We've talked so much about the offense the last couple of weeks. I wanted to ask you a thing or two about the defense. Hunter Waller was mentioned a lot on the broadcast. It was Jeff Levering and Jake Butt, who I really enjoy, and talked about how he's a leader for this team. And, you commented, you had a quote from him in your story as well about how they kind of owed him after what Northwestern did to them at Camp Randall last year. This felt a little personal. It felt like they were almost excited to get down there and beat up and make a physical statement against this Northwestern team.
Yeah, that was a quote from defensive lineman Kurt Neal. We owed them a butt whooping.
Yeah.
He didn't say butt. But obviously Luke Fickell brought that game up from what happened a year ago when Wisconsin got embarrassed. And that was Luke's word after the game a year ago by Northwestern, trailing by 3 touchdowns at halftime, getting booed off the field. So that was certainly part of the motivation this week. But defensively, I think what's really stood out is this is not a team that has 1 or 2 All-American linebackers. This is really a group where it could be a different guy on a different day. If you go and look at who the leading tacklers have been through 7 games, they've had 8 different leading tacklers or guys who tied for the team lead in tackles. Now, that does include a game where 4 guys tied for the team lead with 5 tackles. But the point is, Hunter Waller's a great player, and he's led the team in tackles a couple of times. But Preston Zachman's gotten 10 tackles. Jaheim Thomas has led him a couple of times. I think they're getting playmaking from every level of the defense. And the biggest surprise in my mind, Grant, is what we're seeing from the defensive line, because that was the biggest question mark of any position group coming into the season. And the top 3 that they found with Kurt Neal, with Ben Barton, who blocked a field goal against Northwestern, and with Elijah Hills, the transfer from Albany, has really been outstanding.
Well, I was going to ask you another thing that I'd written down. I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength this week. Some of those players along the defensive front, because they suffered that injury and we didn't really know some of these names. That was, to your point, probably the biggest question mark positionally on this team. What players have impressed you? What players have emerged along that defensive front? I know it's a team effort, but which players specifically have you been impressed by or surprised by?
Elijah Hills would have to be the first one that comes to mind. This is a guy who Wisconsin got from the transfer portal in the offseason from the FCS level at Albany. And I think transfer portal guys in general can feel like a crapshoot, even though there is a lot of film, college film, but even more so at the FCS level, and maybe even more so on the defensive line. I think about some of the other portal guys they've gotten. A year ago, they went and got Darian Varnu, who was a first-team all-conference performer at Temple, and didn't pan out and then left after a year. The other guy they brought in this offseason is an FCS transfer from Stephen F. Austin named Brandon Lane, and we have not seen a ton of him. Well, Hills has taken advantage of his opportunity. He's been much more explosive and impactful than I would have thought. He recovered that fumble at the 3-yard line that allowed Wisconsin to score another touchdown. So he would be the first one, but all three of those guys deserve a lot of credit for raising their game, because we see what physical Big Ten football is all about. It's one in the trenches on both sides of the ball.
No, and I would tend to agree. You mentioned the stat, and I'll mention it again because I wrote it down. 1 touchdown over the last 3 games against Big Ten opponents. It's the first time they've done that since 1998. Jesse Temple is here. We're talking about the defense because the last couple of weeks, they've found that balance. They've found that mix between physicality and big playability on offense. And I think this defense now has started to figure it out. Obviously, a historical stretch. Great stretch against lesser teams, and that's fine. Are you more confident or are you more excited in what the offense or the defense can do against 3 really good opponents coming up, Penn State, Iowa, and Oregon?
Wow, that's a really good question. I suppose my answer would be the defense. I wonder if those are, look, they've both, on both sides of the ball, done things that you feel like can be sustainable. I have questions about both, because we heard the guys on defense talk about how confident they were going into Alabama week because of how well they performed in adverse situations and wins against Western Michigan and South Dakota. Well, how did that work out? Alabama ended up scoring 6 touchdowns on its 12 drives. And Penn State is going to make you pay, especially if this offense makes some mistakes. So defensively, they've done some really good things in 3 weeks. Maybe they found something. Offensively, they've also done some good things in terms of establishing that physical identity, leaning on the offensive line and the running game. I think my biggest question would be, can Braden Locke limit mistakes? Because it really hasn't cost him here in this winning streak. Now, he threw a pick six that was returned 55 yards for a touchdown against USC, and he's had at least 1 interception in each of his 4 starts this season and 6 total turnovers. But the defense was able to kind of negate those mistakes against bad teams, and I just don't know if that's going to be possible if Penn State gets a turnover and has the ball at Wisconsin's 40-yard line.
Have you seen improvement from Braden Locke, whether it's in games or practice, what you've heard from him in press conferences? Do you really think that he's gotten more comfortable and maybe some of those traits that the Badgers liked when they recruited him? Have you seen him kind of take steps as a player over the last month?
Yeah, absolutely. For the longest time, he was a career 50% completion passer, and it just had this uncanny ability to do that in every game. But we saw in Purdue, he threw 3 touchdown passes, and then he completed more than 70% of his throws against Rutgers. There are obviously a handful of mistakes that he would want back, but I think he's gaining more confidence. The offensive line is giving him a lot of time in pass protection, and his playmakers have gone and made plays for him when he's taken some shots down the field. And that's what they need out of this offense. So can you get a handful of those and limit the mistakes? But he reminded reporters this week that he started, 7, 8 games in his career. That's still less than a full season. So by those standards, still a pretty young quarterback who's learning and growing.
So the atmosphere on Saturday night should be pretty crazy. Are you, well, I think we're both thankful, but going back to that Bama game, the way that they lost that game and, the way the energy kind of got sucked out of Camp Randall on that Saturday afternoon, I didn't anticipate that we would have another opportunity or another jacked up crowd for a big time matchup like this one. And I think that speaks to what the program has done the last 3 weeks to, I think, get reinvestment and to get buy-in from the fans who may have kind of rolled their eyes against Bama, against USC, to bring the fan base back and to be able to come into an environment Saturday night that I think is going to be pretty great, pretty electric. I think that speaks a lot to the progress that the program has made over the last couple of weeks, right?
Well, what this 3-game winning streak has done is create a level of cautious optimism that certainly
Sure.
didn't exist 3 weeks ago. And yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere. I go back to opportunities like this, even though Wisconsin already played a top 5 Alabama team, or at least an Alabama team that was then ranked in the top 5, they don't come along that often, especially a top 3 team in Penn State. Think of those moments that everybody remembers where they were. The David Gilreath opening kickoff return for 97 yards against number 1 Ohio State, and the Badgers upset them 14 years ago.
Mhm.
Zach and I were talking about this on the camp, but this has an opportunity truly to be the most impactful home victory Wisconsin has had since then. Because again, these types of chances don't come along very often. They don't typically beat top 3 teams. They've only beaten 3 top 10 teams at home since then, and 2 of them were Nebraska teams that either finished unranked or barely in the top 25, and another one was a number 9 Iowa team a few years ago that really wasn't a top 10 team. They ended up 22nd in the country and lost their last 2 games. So this is an undefeated Penn State team. In Wisconsin, I feel like there's so much riding on this opportunity because it can be Luke Fickell's first signature victory.
Yeah.
It can demonstrate the team has truly turned a corner in the quest to compete at a higher level. And, I mean, outside shot, but hey, there's 5 weeks to go in the regular season and they don't have a nail in the coffin yet. You start having conversations about, oh, they just did that. They've won 4 in a row. Maybe they can find themselves in the playoffs if they can win 4 more in a row. I know that's sort of pie in the sky, but the point is a win like this can change the conversation in a lot of the same ways that the Alabama game could have. But now they would have some evidence of a 4-game winning streak to say they've turned the corner.
Yeah, and I just think those conversations, as pie in the skies they might be, they seemed just inconceivable a couple of weeks ago. And I think you did a really good job outlining what the last 3 weeks have meant for the program and for the fan base. And for some of these players to just be able to celebrate and to feel like the work and the investment has paid off. And I think that's really important for a locker room. And we've talked about that. Hey, before I let you go, the atmosphere at Camp Randall and Penn State, that should be amazing. What did you think of the temporary stadium for Northwestern? It looked really cool. The scenery was awesome. It just seemed like there weren't that many seats and it was pretty quiet on TV.
I like to look at the lake beyond the stadium. The product on the field was kind of whatever. And I know no one cares about this, but the press box for reporters may as well have been in a broom closet. They had like 10 people squeezed into about 5 feet worth of space, it felt like. So nobody really cares about that. But I guess it was an opportunity to do it one time, and I suppose I'm glad I'm never have to do that again.
Now, isn't there anything endearing? I'm sure you guys all covered prep sports at one time. Didn't it feel like a fun throwback to remember when you were covering smaller programs or high school sports back in the day? Nothing like that?
I covered a lot of high school sports, and I would say 99% of the press box environments were bigger and better than that one. It is what it is, man. It's just a job, and obviously Wisconsin won, and now fans are excited again, and that's fun.
It was cool scenery, and the product, yeah, it maybe it matched the product. Maybe they don't need a bigger stadium, but I just wanted to ask you about that because it looked cool on TV. Thank you, Jesse. Enjoy the atmosphere on Saturday night. We look forward to your coverage.
Thanks, Grant. Talk soon.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Last couple minutes before we turn things over for the evening. The Bill Michaels Huddle coming up. Mike Clemens will be joining. You'll hear a little bit from Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love and plenty of other players that made themselves available to the media today. Looking forward to Jacksonville this upcoming weekend. I think the Packers have another nice opportunity to take another step. I think the last 3 weeks post-Minnesota game, I keep going back to the Minnesota game as this line of demarcation. Jordan Love had to get back, shake some rust off. The first half was pretty brutal, but then the second half is like, all right, feels like we're maybe back on the tracks. And at that point, I think they were 2-2. And it felt like Jordan Love was back and had an opportunity to shake some rust off. And then the last 3 weeks, I'd say they've taken a little bit of a step each and every week. The Rams game, that was nice. Could have been a little bit better. Cardinals game was great. I'd say that was as close to a perfect game, a 4-quarter game as possible. Now, game against the Texans wasn't perfect, but their defense was so great and their offense made a couple huge plays in big moments. I'm just not going to get bent out of shape about style points against a team like Houston. Now, if they were playing the Patriots or the Panthers, maybe style points. Yeah, maybe I'd be a little bit more concerned with style points, but not against Houston. Winning by hook or by crook, beating that team, beating that quarterback and that coaching staff, I'll take it. Now, the next 2 weeks, an opportunity to take another step. I think against Jacksonville, this Packers team should be able to flex their muscles a little bit. If they're the contender, the type of team that we talked about all offseason, and if they're the contender, the type of team that a lot of people are thinking of them currently. They think the NFC is the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, possibly the Commanders, possibly some other teams, not really sure. If the Packers are that contending team that a lot of people think they are, this is an opportunity to flex your muscles, to play a really good, consistent, complete 4-quarter game, and then they'll have to do the same. The Lions will demand that of them at Lambeau Field 2 weeks from now or week and a half from now. So these next 2 weeks present another opportunity for this team to take another step. Appreciate Jesse Temple and his Badgers coverage. We'll talk more about the Penn State game coming up on Saturday as the week progresses. A little bit of trivia. I forgot that I brought this up, and I looked it up, and I never shared the answer. If you remember the Nate Stanley, Alex Hornibrook, Josh Jackson game of 2017, thrilling game, afternoon game, not a night game, but an afternoon game. I remember being there. There was a play where the Badgers returned a Nate Stanley fumble for a touchdown, and the player who picked it up did a great job of waiting to fully grab the ball until his knee was off the ground. And I was saying before, and Vagabond John can remember it either. What player was that? It was Leon Jacobs, who actually had 2 fumble recoveries, 1 for a touchdown in that game. It was a fun box score, a fun play-by-play to look back through. So I was looking at some of the memories from that game. One of my favorite Badger games from the last couple of years. But to Cone Roller's point, and to the point that, we were kind of hinting at before Jesse came on with us, it's been a while since the Badgers have had a true, I remember where I was type signature win. And this Penn State game certainly qualifies as an opportunity for that. 100%. Absolutely. Yes. The LSU game was special. I remember where I was for that. That was a fun one. This would be significant in a way that I think that LSU game wasn't. This win, if they were to beat Penn State on Saturday night, would put Luke Fickell and this Wisconsin program on the map in a way that they really haven't been on the map through Luke Fickell's first, season and a half? Let's call it season and what now? 5 games? How many games? 5, 6 games? It all starts to run together. But this game is a huge opportunity. And to be quite honest, an opportunity that I wasn't so sure that they'd get again. When they lost to Bama the way that they did, and I was in attendance, I was walking out. It was a hot day, and everyone could just kind of only laugh. It's like, man, this is where we are as a program, where we get absolutely blasted by the powers of college football. I didn't think we'd have another opportunity for a game like this at Camp Randall this year. I thought, all right, we're gonna ride this year out and then try to figure out where we stand with Luke Fickell and where this program is headed. The fact that since Bama and since USC, they have put together a string of games, albeit against lesser competition. But I'm going to keep banging this drum. It wasn't a lock that they were going to go out and beat Rutgers, and it certainly wasn't a lock that they were going to go down to Northwestern. Those games were both very losable, and I wasn't super confident about either. The fact that they won comfortably in both games, they went 3-0 against Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern, 2 of those games on a road, and did so in dominating fashion. I think it was a nice step for the program. I think this weekend we learned how big of a step it was or wasn't, right? Okay, so you could beat up on the bad teams. That's step number 1. Great. Can you hang in there and maybe pull up a surprise upset against an elite team at home? Well, that's a different thing. And I think this weekend, and then in the weeks to come between Iowa and Oregon as well, we're going to learn exactly how big or how small of a step this Luke Fickell program has taken over the last 3 weeks. Bill Michaels Huddle, going to get you caught up on the news of the day in Green Bay. Mike Clemens will join as well. It's coming up in just a few minutes. I'll talk to the rest of you tomorrow at 4.